Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. This is the live version of my Salt Lake City review. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We're in season 6, episode 12. It's a recap, opinion, might get a slight rant. And this is First Amendment rights and wrongs. So we're going to see a lot of Bronwyn in this episode because she is hosting Spill the Tea Party. Kind of a cute play on the Boston Tea Party, but I'm not that big into reenactments and things like that when you go to 1776 because they are lucky Mary showed up. I don't know if I would have shown up, but I mean, it was an okay episode. It was kind of cute. So this is the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, season 6, episode 12, live recap, opinion, rant, review, First Amendment rights and wrongs. Back with the Salt Lake City ladies. So we start out, of course, they give us the little scenery views that we get, which I love. This is one of the prettiest cities. The way they showcase it, because it seems like it could be pretty plain vanilla, but it just looks, it's pretty. So Bronwyn is picking up Todd. We are at the airport. We're at SLC. That's the airport code where Bronwyn's picking Todd up. She's dressed as a sloth. He's smiling, but I think he's forcing himself to do that. This is ridiculous. She takes the hat off. She is a sweaty mess under there. So in the confessional, we get Bronwyn saying that there's ups and downs in a marriage, but she's willing to work through with Todd. She said, "Can you guess what I am? I'm the fastest sloth that you've ever seen." So she gets in the car. He's driving. And she admits that she got involved in something between Whitney and Meredith, and now Meredith is upset with her. Todd is kind of scolding, as he's been known to do. He said, "This is how it always ends up with you ladies, but you're going to have to sit down and someone do an apology and just try to kumbaya." So she says that she's going to plan a party, which is where you spilled the Boston Tea Party. And she's going to, now Bronwyn's been guilty of this, bringing back news to the other ladies. But what she's going to do is just give them the opportunity in front of each other to say what they said about someone else, and then just throw that overboard into the harbor and let all the negativity out and the gossip. Todd reminds her that they hung traitors in that era, y'all. That's funny. The Orange Clown just had a tweet out about that, or Truth Social, whatever they call that over there, about hanging traitors. So Whitney and Justin are in a scene, and y'all, I may not cover every scene because a lot of this was filler in my opinion. And I fell asleep on some of it, and then I tried to watch it again. But Whitney and Justin are discussing her feelings about their failed business. Whitney's sitting on the patio looking pensive. She's having a drink. Justin comes out, and he looks like he's at the principal's office, y'all. It's really awkward. And then they decide to, well, should we talk about it? "I'm having a hard time blaming you." You know, Whitney doing her little Marilyn Monroe, Salt Lake City version impersonation. I think this is manipulative because if this were wildly successful and they did become $1 billion business, she'd be taking credit. But since they owe money and it's not going the way they thought it was going to be, and it's a scandal, a sin and a shame, now she is blaming it on Justin when he really never wanted part of her business. He had another job. He was a businessman when they met, and he lost that job. So she started saying, it was awkward. "Welcome, Sharon Gabo. Thank you so much for coming in during the live review for Salt Lake City." She said, "I looked in our account and there was a large transfer of money to a vendor, and I feel really upset about it." She might have said she felt betrayed. Something she said that did not make sense. Whitney, y'all owe people all this money. This is one thing I can't stand, when certain people decide this didn't work out, I'm going to go into bankruptcy. And I'm talking about business bankruptcy. There are small vendors, employees, other people on the other side of that transaction. These people are still owed money. So Whitney wanted a do-over, and Justin is paying their debts. He said, "I feel obligated to make some of our debts right." Remember, y'all, it's in Salt Lake City. So these vendors, smaller vendors, other small companies like them, people that they know, I don't blame Justin. So she's upset about it. She starts saying, "I'm fighting to get my name off the company," because she's claiming that she knew this wasn't going to work out, but she still went into business with Justin, who, again, he was in a scandalous multi-level marketing business. I never heard of one of those that wasn't somewhat of a scam. This is allegedly, this is in my opinion, but other than, let's say, Mary Kay. And Mary Kay even has a hierarchy. Somebody in the pink Cadillac, there's people, thousands of women under them that are not making any money. So this is what Justin was into, multi-level marketing. She merged Whitney Rose into that business. Now it's gone bust, and she's upset. So Whitney's claiming she wasn't told. She had a vision, and she was supposed to be in Target, Ulta, Sephora. As a matter of fact, the day that we merged the businesses, I had a meeting with Sephora. So I don't know. We'll see. If she says it, okay, I'll just take her at her word. So Justin, she's claiming, made her believe that this could be $1 billion business. Again, Whitney Rose was a skincare line, and then I know she has jewelry or something. So I don't know which one she is more in tune with, but that's what she claims her businesses are. He apologizes. She says, I am trying not to resent you, but she is clearly resentful. She is. She's upset. She gets a confessional, and the producer says, well, Whitney, has this caused a change in the marriage? And she says, initially, we were closer, just going into this business together, us against the world. But now, since things didn't work out, it is causing a strain in their marriage. So I am sorry to hear that. She said the business and marriage became number one. So she doesn't know what she needs, and it's just impacted the marriage. And she feels like Justin feels the resentment, and he made a mistake. Welcome in, CC, one of my moderators. Thank you for coming in during the live for the Salt Lake City review. I appreciate it. Speaking to myself, Sharon, and anyone else in chat and in the bushes. Thank you, everyone. So Justin and Whitney are having a tough time because of this business. There's a cute scene with Heather and her daughters. Heather has done a great job. I will give Heather Gay credit for that. She has gone through this divorce. She has sent one daughter off to Miami. The one that they're sending off now, they're decorating her room. She's going to Tampa. Both of them are going to college. So the one that's in Miami, Heather is asking her, what's it like when you go somewhere like Miami and they hear you are from Salt Lake City? What do they think when they hear Salt Lake City? And the daughter said, Mormons. And Heather said, yeah, that's about right. So they're decorating the room. It's really cute. Everything, Tampa. They said she'll love the room. They have more conversation. Switch to another scene. We get Bronwyn is at home making decorations for this Spill the Tea Party. So she and Muzzy are working together. She says she thinks it is funny that the thing Muzzy hated the most about her, those are strong words, Bronwyn. I don't think your mother ever hated you, but Muzzy is tough as nails, was the fact that she was a teen mom. She had Gwen early. She had to leave college. It was a source of shame for the family. They're talking about it now. She said, and now Gwen's your favorite person. And it's true. Yeah, Whitney's very resentful, and she can't hide it. Sharon says it. You see it on her too. She is. And blaming Justin is her fault too. Thank you, CC's. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. I enjoy seeing Heather with her daughters. I do too. This is the best part of Heather. So Heather, show more of this, the family scenes. With them moving out, she's up and running with her business. I love her decorating her office, decorating the daughter's room. No more bloody, pissy pool mattresses, please. That was so disgusting, y'all. After the episode last week, I was just thoroughly disgusted by Heather thinking that was cute and then dragging Whitney into it. But we're now on the scene. She has decorated the room with the daughters. Muzzy and Bronwyn are doing decorations for the Boston Tea Party. Muzzy's saying, well, I never told you I love you, I'm proud of you, because I didn't come up like that. But the way you do with Gwen, you're the greatest, you're the best. She said it does work for her because she is very well-rounded. And Gwen does seem to be pretty well-rounded. Remember, she's 18. She's decided that she wants to go to, I believe she said Portland or somewhere. She's convinced Bronwyn and Todd to move her boyfriend in the house. So Gwen's pretty much doing what she wants to do at her young age. So Bronwyn is touched. She's crying. I never thought I'd hear you say that. So Muzzy and Bronwyn have come a long way. She says, it means a lot, too, because you don't dole out the compliments. So I thought this was really sweet between Muzzy, because we know the first time we saw Muzzy, I couldn't stand Muzzy. I said, Bronwyn, you might have to get Muzzy out of your house because she is a danger to your self-esteem. She really is. Yeah, we don't want to see any more Heather in that mattress. That made everybody just kind of sick. I didn't hear one good thing about it or where anybody thought it was funny. Severe miscalculation. So Muzzy's trying to burnish her image a little bit. And I think she is. I hope she's sincere. I hope it's real. They're cutting up this paper for the decorations. Bronwyn does something wrong and Muzzy's like, uh-oh, that one's out of line. And Bronwyn says, here we go. I knew we couldn't go this far without you bringing up something. So then next we have, oh y'all, so I might be out of order because what I have next, I'll just go into it. And if I'm skipping anything, I'll fill it in. Angie shows up at what looks like an empty building dressed as Betsy Ross because she has the flag, she got the little hat on and all of this. So that's how they showed us the version of Betsy Ross back in elementary school. Now, the real story, I heard that there was a sister that was doing most of the sewing. She was a seamstress and she worked with Betsy Ross. And I believe that. Cece sent me information about, and I had heard that before, the seamstress. She did alteration. She was a designer. Jackie Onassis' wedding dress. And a lot of people don't know that, but it was a sister. So I have to get to the Smithsonian. I'm not sure if they have her working there or not, but I have to see it. But anyway, Angie is dressed as Betsy Ross, who is taking credit for sewing the flag. We get another scene with Brittany is on the way. She's in the car with Heather and also Whitney. So they're drilling her about how did it go with Meredith. Brittany is saying, well, she gave me her version of an apology. I accept it because I do want to move on. Y'all, these two are kind of mad that Brittany and Meredith are moving on. They have something against Meredith and also Lisa. I've heard that too. You've heard that too, Sharon? Yeah. I mean, it's a trip the way certain people try to bury history. To hear them tell it, we don't have any history, but why are you trying so hard to bury it or tell people you're the ones responsible for it and you know you're not? But I guess when you feel inadequate, you have to try to make others less as well, but we know real history. So Whitney and Heather are joking with Brittany, you're better than me because I don't know if I could accept that apology. Heather says, well, were you scared to go there? You thought it was like, meet me at a park at high noon? Brittany was joking. Yeah, I thought it was going to be kind of a duel. But I think what happened with her and Meredith, that's as good as she's going to get. Just leave it alone. So Brittany's joking. I'm going to walk 10 paces back and you walk toward me. See, now, Brittany, if they take this back to Meredith and act like you were talking about her, then you're going to be crying. So Brittany admits, well, what I said to her at first about Seth, it was a trigger, and I did do it to be shady. Remember, she started out saying, I'm just trying to help, telling you something about your husband that you may not know. When she knew Meredith don't want to hear anything about Seth from somebody else. So Whitney says, did she address verbally attacking you? Brittany says, no, she apologized for hurting my feelings. Again, Brittany, you accepted that apology. We let you know that's all you're going to get. So just enough with this. We're tired of it. Lisa and Meredith are in a separate car. They are also talking about the apology where Meredith met with Brittany in the park. And Lisa's like, so how did you leave it? Meredith says, we're going to be cordial. We're going to try to be respectful to each other. Lisa said, that's never going to last or work out. Lisa is so negative that it's almost funny. So Lisa is actually dressed as her version of Hamilton. She has one of the, if you ever saw the Seinfeld episode with the puffy shirt, the white puffy shirt. So she honestly could have gone somewhere else. She wasn't costumey, but she looked really cute. And Meredith is pretty funny. I don't know what Meredith had on. It looked like a turquoise sky blue type onesie. And then she has some tights on with it. So I don't know. I forgot to address the other car. They did pretty well. They looked like colonial times. So Meredith is saying that she's down for a theme, but this time she's going to wear what she wants to wear. Because I wondered what she was supposed to be dressed as. So I guess nothing, because that was in my notes. Mary, of course, shows up late. All the ladies, as they get there, they were teasing Whitney. Whitney, they didn't have lip gloss in colonial times. You got to put it back. But, of course, Whitney's still getting herself together. So they all went in. They're eating food, egg sandwiches, hot dogs. Bronwyn's calling K-dogs for some reason. I don't know why she's doing that. They had tea. They had whiskey. They had wine. And they're all sitting there. Mary comes in late. Mary is dressed. She didn't look colonial, but she had some type blazer on. And then she also had a little pageboy cap on. They have these founding father hair, as Bronwyn called it. And it's just the white wigs. Mary said, I brought my own. I didn't blame Mary because I don't know if they came from a rental store or not. And you know, certain people, we can't put everything on our head like other people are willing to do. So Mary put her own little white wig on. Then she put the little pageboy cap back on top of it. So I agree with Mary on that. So they all are there together. Heather, of course, has a flask because she's always trying to be this bad Mormon good time girl. That's her brand. I love Mary's outfit with the hat. Wasn't that funny, Sharon? Mary does what she wants to do, and I have to laugh. I liked it too. I thought it looked cute. So they are drinking out of this flask. And Angie said, "Look at the good Mormons teaching me how to drink." Y'all, Angie K had her whole mouth over. See, that's how y'all get sick. I don't drink after people like that. I don't drink. If any of them have herpes simplex or anything on their lip, they're gonna all have it. So Heather looks at Meredith and Lisa when they get there. You can't just say you're Hamilton. You have to be dressed as Hamilton. And then Whitney has the nerve to tell them, "Well, if you can recite the Bill of Rights, then we'll let you in." Bronwyn didn't care. She just glad everybody's there. Now, they did do, this got on my nerves, y'all. Production is giving all the housewives a quiz since they're doing 1776, Boston Tea Party. Remember, Bronwyn is studying for her citizenship test. And I've heard this in real life too. Same thing with, are you smarter than a fourth grader? Once you're an adult, a lot of times, if you don't continue reading, this stuff just, it goes. Because Brittany says, I had a 4.2, I was valedictorian, now I don't know anything. They're asking them questions from the citizenship test. How many senators are there? Heather Gay didn't know. She's a writer and author. She didn't know. She's like, I don't know, 50, 52, 54. I thought everybody knew there were 100 senators. That's minimal. I think, well, Bronwyn was the only one that knew because she's studying for the citizenship test. So they thought it was cute, but I thought it was a problem. I didn't like that. So Bronwyn is studying for her citizenship test. She got more questions right than a lot of them. And Lisa said she doesn't know why they got to do all of this. She said, I didn't know Bronwyn was becoming a citizen. I would have just sent her some flowers. So Lisa really doesn't want to be there. So they are drinking this whiskey, this wine. Mary wants to know hot dogs. Did they have hot dogs, BC? Mary, it's not before Christ. It's just colonial times. But she said, did they have hot dogs back then? I don't think so. Heather says, this is better than Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, this is one of my pet peeves and kind of a slight rant. All of these little costumes and stuff and the themes, it's getting a little bit high school play-like, which is a little silly. I mean, we watch the reality show for reality, and I don't think adult friends go around doing all these theme parties and this silly stuff like that. So honestly, I'm looking forward to the Greece trip. They could have left a lot of this somewhere else. I'm with you, Sharon. That was disgusting. I don't drink after nobody. No, I had little kids in my family. Once they drink after me, it's over. You can just have the rest of that. I don't want it. Mary is a mess. She's mainly the realest one, and she seems like she would be out of touch, her being a preacher and all, but she is the realest one. So those little egg sandwiches. Now, I like the little bread they were on. It looked like little Hawaiian type buns. But Brittany, none of them really knew any of the answers. So Bronwyn is saying, oh, she's giving them the rules. This is the rules. She said, the person that you may have spilled tea about on purpose or, inadvertently, you get to admit it to them, and then you write their name on something and you throw it into the harbor. The harbor is just this little kind of construction paper. It's supposed to be water. So Bronwyn says, I'm not as smart as the founding fathers are, but I think this is a good idea to kind of get us on a better foot with our friends. She has confessional where she says, I got my fingers crossed that this is confused. She said, I got my fingers crossed, but this is actually hopefully this will work out. So they write down who spilled the tea about what. I don't have everything that everybody talked about. I'll just bring the ones that stand out. Okay, there is one. Angie K said, Lisa, because Angie K and Lisa started out as friends before they started fighting. Angie K said, Lisa, you had told me that you were going to buy a horse. I spilled the tea that I don't think you bought a horse. Lisa's like, I did. I bought a horse. Angie K is saying that every time you do something, you post about it, everybody else knows about it, and nobody has seen the horse. And Lisa's like, well, it's none of your business, which is Lisa's go-to answer when she gets tired of talking. We don't know if Lisa bought a horse or not, but we know Electra, Angie K's daughter, is a rider, and they do own a horse. And I think that Lisa might be lying, and she may have just made that up. So she said, Lisa said she doesn't care. It's none of her business. Angie K admits that she told that tea that Lisa spilled to her, and she threw the tea in the harbor. Now, what Heather made up, Heather says, Bronwyn, don't you think that's pretty funny and ridiculous about Todd making out with somebody and Putin the whole time? And Brown was like, I don't think that's funny. I don't think that's funny, Heather. We know Brown got extremely angry. They had a whole fight with Lisa Kay on the yacht. Y'all, Heather is the one that did this. Heather Kay, this is disgraceful. This is really terrible. She caused a big fight on her own trip, caused Lisa to be isolated, Brown to be upset. And I don't like this. She lied. So she wrote that she tried to get Brown to laugh about it. Brown was not laughing about it. She said, just throw the F and T in the harbor. So Heather wrote her name down that she the one told that story and then threw the T in the harbor. I don't know if Brown was going to forgive her for that. And next, Whitney has tea. She says, Brittany wants to know, who spilled tea on me, went back and told Jared about me making out with everybody on the boat. Whitney says, I wasn't really trying to spill tea. I knew this. I called this at the time. She said, I was telling Justin. And then production goes back to the yacht and shows her doing a talk to text, just kind of gossiping with her husband about what's going on the boat. Like Brittany's got all these guys all over her. She's all over them. And then Justin being friends with Jared, mentioning to him. And Jared, the biggest guard too on the show, has the nerve to hold that against Brittany, talking about they're on a break and all this kind of stuff. So Brittany was a little bit upset about that, but Whitney admitted it and she threw her tea in the harbor. And then they said, well, can we please, after this, no more talk about Jared? And they said, well, no, they're not going to talk about it anymore. They throw that tea in the harbor. So let's see, who else had tea? Oh, Bronwyn wants to throw tea in the harbor. She wants to apologize that she brought Whitney's information back to Meredith, and then that caused a fight. And they start arguing about that again. Heather jumps in. They're arguing about whether or not Meredith did verbally attack Brittany on the airplane. I don't know what to believe at this point. If it comes out at the reunion, I'm interested in it. If it doesn't, I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go from there. Angie K was right. I think she was. I don't believe Lisa about the horse. And then she always says, well, none of your business. But she's the one that brought it up. So they show us the conversation where Whitney and Bronwyn were talking about Meredith, because Bronwyn lies and said, when you were talking about her, I was uncomfortable at the time. Now we know Bronwyn would lie in a minute. Whitney said, if you were uncomfortable at the time, why didn't you stop me? Production shows us they're having this conversation when they went to lunch, and Brown was like, she's going to yell at you and be unhinged for 5 hours when she hears about this. So she says, I'm not the keeper of a private conversation between you and Meredith. Meredith is sitting there nodding her head like, yeah, I'm glad that Whitney got busted and Bronwyn brought this back to me. But we know Bronwyn is a person that doesn't hold secrets. Remember, she took Brittany's gossip about Lisa, about Meredith. They were just shopping. She took that back to them when they were on the yacht, and that caused the big fight. So I honestly would not trust Bronwyn. So Bronwyn's just sitting over there. She says, well, if you felt that way about it, then you should have called her. Whitney claims, I was going to call her. You didn't give me a chance. We had just gotten off for lunch. And then I find out later they had another lunch, and Meredith brought up, well, someone has been talking behind my back. And Whitney knew, well, the only one I mentioned that to was Bronwyn. So they write the T and throw that into the harbor. Y'all, I don't think that they're really throwing it into the harbor. I think they're holding grudges. So Meredith said, Whitney says, did you think that I was giving it time to die down? You think I would call a belligerent woman right then? So Meredith said, you want to go? Let's go. Meredith doesn't like being called belligerent. I think she is belligerent, but she may not remember this. Whitney says, so you're going to say you didn't taunt her for 6 hours. Meredith is saying, I'm going to say I didn't. Whitney is saying, all of the other witnesses are saying that you did. The other ladies are nodding their head. They're saying that they did. Heather's piping up. Yeah, this is what happened. I'm inclined to believe most of this did happen, but again, I don't think Meredith remembers. Whitney says, don't call me a liar. Heather says, yeah, don't call me a liar either. We all know that this happened. Everyone says this happened. You just won't admit to it. So Meredith says, you are a liar. Confessional Whitney says, calling me a liar triggers me because honestly, I'm one of the most honest person and I feel things very deeply. Whitney, we have seen you lie before. She says that she used to get gaslit because her father was an addict. All of these are triggers for her. I don't know why Whitney is talking about her father being an addict and then relating this to Meredith. Now, I do think that Meredith did have a couple of drinks. People did see her drink. I think if she took something to sleep during the flight, that might have interacted badly, possibly be why she doesn't remember. But I don't like where Whitney's going with this. So Meredith calls her a liar again. Whitney says, if you're going to call me a liar, I'll call you an alcoholic. Meredith is shocked. I'll call you a pill popper. Meredith gets up. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going to go on? This is not Atlanta or Jersey or any of these other places where they flip tables. I was just like, what's going on? Meredith went behind her. She has these velvet bags. You know, she has her caviar line. She hands each of the ladies a bag. Heather's looking in it. Oh, this is nice. Brittany thinks they're getting gifts. Okay, this is cold. So that was the caviar. She said, oh, a drug test. Meredith says, if you want to keep doing a character assassination of me, I'm happy to take a drug test. Everyone here is going to take a drug test. Whitney started looking nervous, y'all. So you got to be careful talking about people. Mary said, can I get a refill on this wine? Mary know they're going to be a minute. Mary, I don't blame you. So the bags were really cute. So Brittany's mouth is hanging open. She said, I have never taken a drug test in my life. Heather Gage trying to make light. Well, what is this? Are we supposed to be like we're starting a new job or something? Y'all are the one that want to call this late. Yeah, a liar versus alcoholic and a pill popper. Yes, EC. So y'all are the one that's want to call this lady all these names. And then she's saying, well, let's all take tests. Whitney's like, well, I'm wearing this. She had one of these big hoop dress on that like Trina had on at one of Tawanda's events on the Braxtons. Now, Trina did pee in her dress, but Whitney's like, what am I supposed to do? Pull up my dress and pee on a stick? Whitney, it wouldn't shock me because you are common, okay? So I wouldn't be shocked that she did that. So Meredith says, oh, look at you. Whitney puts the test behind her that she's not taking the test. Heather's like, absolutely not. She tells production. Production said, Heather, would you take a test? Absolutely not. But they can call her pill popper, alcoholic, and all this stuff. She's calling them liars, but they are saying things that are, this can be proven. If they all took tests and nobody came back or certain ones came back, this is something that can be proven. And I don't think Meredith wants it out there that she pops pills. I have my own theory on that. It might have just been a one-off. I don't know, because of this flight. So Brittany, who's never taken a drug test, she said, I would take it. I'll take it in a minute. But nobody's getting up to take it. There's bathrooms there, but nobody's getting up to take it. So Whitney wants to know, where does one go for 7 drug tests? The pharmacy, Whitney, you can get them over the counter now. Mary said, 7 drug tests, that's a lot of urine. So Mary's still trying to be comic relief, which she is. And then she said, is anybody else wearing a girdle? Because mine is digging into me. So some of the ladies start laughing. Some of them are just looking at her. And then they kind of move on from this. Meredith gets a confessional. I'm sick of Whitney making false accusations, worry about her own life. Whitney gets a confessional. I'm not trying to make any type of accusation. She is backpedaling like crazy. I'm just concerned. I was concerned for her. I don't think Whitney was concerned for Meredith. I think that Whitney and Heather have some reason turned on Lisa and Meredith, and they're coming up with whatever they can about them. So Whitney says, I was just reacting to her behavior on the plane. Then we start to see flashback from the yacht, Whitney getting into it with Heather. Not Whitney getting into it with Heather. Whitney getting into it with Meredith and Heather getting into it with Lisa, all this back and forth. Whitney is saying, I witnessed Meredith's behavior and I recognize it. She's still attributing this, y'all, to her drug-addicted daddy. Based on what she said, I have no knowledge of that. This is what she said, that she grew up around an addict. She said, I can't say anything for sure about Meredith, but I'm used to this behavior and seeing it being around drugs and alcohol. But I don't do any drugs at all. The only thing I ever do is a little bit of alcohol. Okay, Whitney. If she says that, I believe her, but then she shouldn't be throwing these accusations at Meredith either. So Lisa is saying Whitney is weaponizing her own personal experience with her father against Meredith, and I don't think that's right. I have to agree with Lisa. So in the confessional, Lisa says, your friend gets upset and they label you a drug and an alcoholic. That's not right. What is wrong with you people? So that's right. I mean, well, no, let me not say it was just a flight. Okay, I was getting ready to say, yeah, Meredith had this one event, but she did the whole trip. she was throwing things at Brittany, pouring water on Brittany, just doing different things that were erratic throughout the yacht trip. But I don't know. They took a long flight over there, so maybe it started on the flight there. I don't know. So Whitney says, you yelled at me when I tried to have a conversation. Meredith is having none of it. I didn't yell at you. Heather saying, I don't know why you're saying you didn't yell at her. Mary saying, yeah, you did yell at her. Yeah, I don't think they know what happened at this point, but I think Meredith did show off on that airplane. I do. So they also says that Meredith said that if they side with Brittany, the friendship is over. Meredith is saying, I never told anyone that. I never told anyone that. I think Meredith is lying. I think she did say her or me, because Brittany being a friend of, there is a hierarchy. They look at her as less. And Meredith in particular does think she and some of the other ladies are better than Brittany. So I could see her saying that. So Heather says, I'm serious about this. I'm not going to consider you a friend if you're going to sit here and call me a liar. So then Whitney is claiming that her bringing drug tests is projection at its finest. And now you're saying that you believe that I'm a liar? I do believe Whitney is a liar. I don't think that Whitney's on drugs, but I don't know why she was so quick not to take the test. She said, F that. Meredith gets in a confessional and says, oh, she said, when the tables turn, she said the first one saying all that about drugs is the first one not to want to take the test. So that's true. Meredith she's an attorney by trade. She can absolutely use her words. Welcome in, dear Yvette. Thank you so much for coming in during the live. Good to see you. Thank you. She's saying hello and giving purple hearts. I love it. So then the next thing, Heather is saying that if we're not going to have a solution, then we need to move on. I don't think they're going to have a solution, y'all. I really don't. Bronwyn stops it all and says, we as women, we all need to come up with a friendship amendments to the friendship. So she's still going back to this 1776 theme. She is saying, are there any ground rules that you want? Here are mine. She said, you don't talk about family, which includes husband and children. So that's her amendment. And businesses. And I said, what are they going to talk about? So that's why I watched the show. So then they say, all of them have this different version of things they should not talk about with these new friendship amendments. Meredith is the last one and says, stop the reactive abuse. So everybody's like, what does that even mean? That doesn't fit in. What are you talking about? Reactive abuse? We get Whitney in a confessional reading the definition of reactive abuse, where a victim reacts to abuse with behavior that could include abuse of their own. Like if someone is being beaten and then they fight back, then they turn around and cry, oh, she hit me. Like, yeah, you were beating her up, and so that's why she hit you. So then they end somehow talking about farts. These ladies are obsessed with that. Y'all, that is so silly. It's ridiculous. I didn't realize I rated this low. I said I'm going to give it a 5 only because they had a handful of good conversations, which was Whitney and her husband, Justin, even though I didn't like her blaming him for their failing business, Muzzy and Bronwyn. And that was pretty much it. There wasn't too much. We get a preview where Lisa and Angie K are going to start feuding again. I don't know if it has to do with Angie K hosting this trip. Angie K is hosting the trip to Greece because remember, she wants to do, good morning, one crafty sister. Thanks for coming in during the live. She wants to do dual citizenship because she's really getting into her Greek heritage. We're seeing more of her father. Her father's 90 years old, and he got to tell us in earlier episodes how he came to the country. This is a running theme through Salt Lake City. We just found out last week Bronwyn was born in Brazil and is not a citizen. So that is pretty interesting. So Heather is still talking about whether or not she and Meredith are ever going to be able to be friends again. Heather always has to have somebody to feud with. I'm getting a little bit tired of this. Whitney is going to attack Meredith again. And that was pretty much it. I didn't know I rated it that low. I'm going to leave it there, though. I'm going to leave that 5 because it's certainly not a 7. I wouldn't give them a passing grade. They need to do better because this is getting a little gimmicky and kind of theme focused. I don't need to see a theme every week. I don't need to see Bronwyn in a costume every week. Oh, that was another thing. She was dressed in some kind of elaborate Hamilton dress with the big hoop, and then she changed when she went to bring out the last little thing they were going to talk about. She had a Constitution dressed on. It had the entire Constitution as a draped around the front. So that's Bronwyn. You know, she likes to bring her fashion out. But I didn't care for this episode too much, y'all. It took me like a couple of days to even watch it, and the review is late. The other review I'm supposed to be working on, I haven't seen the episode yet. Life in the Fab Lane. It's the return of Kimora Lee Simmons. So we get to watch her with all of these kids that she's had of her own, other people's children she's had to pick up, and then still running her business. And the two young ladies are grown. Thank you, Cece. Please like and subscribe. Let me see this last comment. For that type of party, Mary should have dressed as a slave and laughing, or is that crying? I can't with clear people in their inappropriate parties. I feel the same, Cece. I said I'm kind of surprised that Mary even went, and they're lucky she went, but I wouldn't have been sitting there in no founding father wig. They would have to get a little more of the facts from me. As far as even Angie K, you're dressed as Betsy Ross. Let me tell you who did most of the sewing and the design for that flag, and just let them know who was building this and building that. Things that they don't know. I think some of them know, y'all. I think they pretend not to know. So, and I think that's why this fool had the East Wing of the White House knocked down. I think they want to rebuild things in their image because they know a lot of what is done was done by people that look like us more so than people that look like the Orange Clown. Even the whole layout of DC and the streets, the alphabets, the way to get around, the fact that it's a grid, that's a Black man. I had his name in my head and now I don't. So I got to start reading more, y'all. I am a reader, but the longer you leave it, the more you forget things. But I had his name in my head. I'm going to, now after this, it's going to make me look it up. But of course, that was a Black man. Banneker? Might have been Benjamin Banneker. I'm not sure if that was an engineer, mathematician, somebody that knew a lot about grids and helped design the Benjamin Banneker. Thank you, CC. I don't feel so bad. Benjamin Banneker, y'all, DC. So yeah, if you're going to have a 1776 party and the Boston Tea Party and all this kind of stuff, Bronwyn, especially as a new wannabe American, you should learn the entire history, not just what they put in front of your face. So I think I will leave this episode at a 5. They need to go back and do some more studying because some of it was offensive, honestly. I can't stand the clear people at my job. I know this is off, but that's not off topic, J-Vet. You are welcome to bring in anything that impacts you. Not to tell Cece's business, but Cece knows what we all were going through during the closing of the government. I'm at the airline every day. That's where I work. Luckily, I wasn't one of the groups that we didn't get paid, but I ride the employee bus with a lot of them that did not. And I'm telling you, these people, the way they just brush everything under the rug. But I think something was done lately that we're going to see what happens. They do the most and the least at the same time, if you get my meaning. I don't believe Whitney, Sharon says. I don't either. I think she doesn't want to talk about herself and Justin. I'm interested to see what Andy Cohen brings out. Mary could have dressed as Crispus Attucks. That would have been a great idea. Y'all know, with Mary being so entrenched in Salt Lake City culture, I don't know how much of her Blackness she feels close to. And then the way Robert Cosby Jr. is so lost, there's something missing. Even I always loved Mary. I always thought she was a little strange earlier seasons. I love her more now. I like her comedy. But Mary used to say some wild stuff. She said she don't like dark-skinned men. And they were like, your husband's a Black man. And she was saying, well, he's Black, but he's not dark. Mary was talking a little bit crazy. So she can be kind of whitewashed. But what little seasoning she has is because of who she is, even with her church. So when Whitney used to try to get on Mary about her church, because she had a scandal with Justin she didn't want to talk about. He was married when she met him. But she's talking about Mary, and this was some type of cult. I'm going to watch the documentary. I think it's just an offshoot of the Mormons. So if they're not a cult, she's not a cult. We know that any Christianity or church that certain people had, we had to, if we want to have any peace, we had to have our own churches. So that's how you get African Methodist, Episcopal, AME, any group that had a religion, we had to have our own, just to be able to rest and have peace, even on a Sunday, y'all. So let me not go too deep into that. Y'all know we can talk over here about any topic. One crafty sister, right? They do the least and swear they do the most, don't they? When I tell you how many managers I have trained and just be like, listen, I don't want your job. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. But if you need help, I'm happy to help you. But we see what's happening now. The didn't earn it's are finally in a position where we get to see what it is. Y'all see that brother, the admiral that stepped down, that they got the one that actually did the second strike. They're trying to throw the book at him. And Pete Kegsbreath talking about, well, I didn't authorize that, but I support him fully. No, you did authorize that. Let me get off topic. So we're going to talk about, I'll probably come back with a hot topic, y'all, because Funky done got on my nerves again, picking at Tamar. But this is the end of the Salt Lake City review. Again, I give the episode a 5. I can't say it's worth watching. There's a few good conversations, but hopefully the trip to Greece will pick up and they can get back on track, because they started out very highly rated by me. They had a couple of 10s, couple of 9s, and now to get a 5. So this is like the good student thinking they're real cute and they don't have to study because they're naturally smart. I need them to get back on the good foot. All BS, says dear Yvette. Exactly. We know what it is. That's the fact that people get so angry, especially at the 92%, because we know what it is. Just listen to us. You don't have to give us credit. Just when we tell you what it is, acknowledge it. Cece says, as the admiral stepped down, I knew he was protecting himself, period. Yeah, when he first saw that mess on paper, we're going to start targeting drug boats in the Caribbean. He probably was like, what? You don't know who's on those boats. There's a fisherman's family, and that is true. I think those people were fishermen. When they talk to the families, I'm like, this don't seem like no big cartel. They're suing. Nobody will honor that amendment. No. Sadly enough, Sharon. I want to see what Beverly Hills are going to do. Yvette, I'm looking forward to that. My girl, Rachel Zoe. I remember her from the Rachel Zoe Project years ago. She's going through a divorce from Roger. Her cute little sons are now either preteen or teens. So it might be okay. Sutton sitting over there lying. She doesn't know why Garcelle is even mad at her. Y'all, I can't stand Sutton now. Sharon gave it a 7. Okay, so Sharon graded them on a curve. So she gave them a 7. I'm going to stick with the 5. And we'll let them get extra credit. Maybe they can still pass. So y'all, thank you so much for joining me during this review for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And I will see you in the YouTube streets. Goodbye, everybody. Ooh, dear Yvette gave it a 4. Yeah, extra credit for sure. Extra credit, they need it. Thank you, Cece. I'll leave this up. Be blessed, everyone. Everyone have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.